So, hello everyone, and welcome to the community call for June 2021. Appreciate you all joining. We've got a packed agenda today, so we're going to get down right into it. And yeah, let's go. So, first things first, we have an upgrade on working groups. So, we've been talking about working groups for a while now. Working groups are essentially subcommittees that are responsible for and Steve, if you wouldn't mind actually running the participants list there, I think we got somebody that might not know their mic button is off.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking about working groups for a little while. These are essentially subcommittees for area-specific labels within the PowerShell repo. And we've been starting to finally invite some external community members into that group. So we've got a PR that I don't know, may have actually been merged already. But basically, because I don't want to get the names wrong, because I'm not because I don't know any of these folks, because I know them all very well, but just because it's early or in the morning and I don't like getting those things wrong. So I can say we definitely have added.
Something closed.
What's that? Oh, it is merged.
It's probably merged.
No, this is what happens when I'm just like I'm trying to remember a thing in my head at the same time I'm trying to click around in the thing. So yeah, we have this engine working group, and we've added both R. Keith Hill and Vex32, or Keith Hill and Joel Sallow, respectively. So these are folks that have been very, very active in the PowerShell repos, and that we want to, bring into the fold to help us make some of the decisions on these engine aspects. We've also added a couple folks here, JD Hit Solutions and Tobias PSP. These are Jeff Hicks and Tobias Veltner, who are joining the commandlet working group, which we recently spun up. And so they're going to be helping out with, sort of commandlet design, deciding, which commandlets make sense in PowerShell versus not, and really offering up some of the expertise that they have from being out there in the enterprise world. So I think we've got another one that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but there are some folks that are also coming into the developer experience. We've actually got our kickoff meeting right after this, and then you'll see some PRs light up with those folks as well. So do you know those off the top of your head, Steve, just so we can give some kudos here before next month? Because I don't want to get it wrong. And I know I can go look in the meeting invite, but I'm currently sharing my screen, so.
Okay, I think, and I apologize if I get this wrong, I think it's Justin Grody and Chris Bergmeister.
Yes, that is definitely correct. Yeah, so Justin Grody, Chris Bergmeister, very excited, both major contributors here, and they're going to be helping out with the developer experience. So we're very excited. This was something that we've been wanting to do for a long time. We did discuss that the priority kind of kicked up on this, given some of the feedback that we received from folks a couple months ago, and we're really glad that we're finally getting it going. One of the other aspects here is that we've spun up a set of Discord channels or a new Discord server for working groups to collaborate in, and we plan to share some more there soon. With regards to how public that's going to be, whether that's going to have some read-only channels that folks can kind of peek into where these conversations are happening, whether we may have regular meetings for the working groups that could be potentially public. We're still deciding. So definitely keep your eyes peeled there. We want to increase the transparency as much as possible while also giving, folks the opportunity to be able to have conversations, potentially less filtered and at a higher bandwidth kind of pipe than a GitHub issue. So we're just really, really excited for all this. Did you want to add anything, Steve?
I guess something I'll just add is we are still learning from this, and so we're going to see how this goes with the community members that we have who graciously volunteered to participate. And then we'll reevaluate maybe in a month or two, and hopefully we'll start inviting more folks in who are capable and can commit the time to do this work. So
yeah, and if if you feel like, oh man, like they totally they've slighted someone who works super hard and that totally deserves to be in the thing, do just note that we're still we're working through a bit of a list. So we didn't want to just like add 25 people in one day. This is something where we're kind of being a little bit tactical and making sure that we, dip our toes in the water and get some of these things like the Discord communication just with 3 working groups. We've we've already had to merge 2 different servers together. So, those sorts of things, like we're taking it one step at a time.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing. For those of you who will sometimes get a no answer, do please be polite. We are all people, including the community members and the PowerShell team. So we appreciate if we can have some professionalism. And even if sometimes we'll get it wrong, and it's okay. There's an appeals process so that we can get different eyeballs on it. But it may also come back as a no. But
yeah, I mean, ultimately, everyone on this call has things that they want in PowerShell. And many of those things, unfortunately, conflict with things that other people want, like, for platform to be extremely stable and, to not have breaking changes and to continue working in their, CI system. So, we have a lot of folks using PowerShell, a lot of considerations to make for sure. Steve, you want to talk about PowerShell 7.2 preview?
Yeah, just a quick update. So we, if all things go well, we should have a preview 7 release, not 6. Joey.
I hear you. I'm popping an emoji with my fingers crossing.
Right. So that should come out today, because generally we try not to release on Fridays, but if it doesn't work out, then it'll probably be Monday, just as an FYI. I think the 2 things I want to really call out on this preview is we've been trying to get integration with .NET 6 Preview 5, and we had some blocking issues. We've been working with them. They've been very responsive, and they've actually fixed those issues in their main branch. However, they're not retroactively fixing those in Preview 5, and Preview 6 is not ready. So that means that we're going to stay with .NET 6 Preview 4 for this preview of 7.2. The other thing I want to call out is in this version of Preview 7, we will have the DSC PS Desire State Configuration module not ship with PowerShell. I saw some minor discussion on Twitter. Like, I don't want people to interpret this as, we're not doing DSC. Again, we had this whole blog post that we put out there. This is really so that we can separate PowerShell development and DSC development so that you can stay on an LTS of PowerShell with a newer version of DSC or vice versa, right? Whatever the case may be. So right now, V2, meaning the older version of the PS Desire State Configuration module, is already published on the gallery. I'm hoping that we'll get the V3 one, which is all the new stuff that's cross-platform. I don't know if it's already published there soon. If not, hopefully soon. I'll follow up on that after this call. And the V3 is a preview, so it's not complete yet. It's still under development.
Awesome.
Yep, and also with the next preview 7, that's when we'll have the Microsoft update. And maybe I'll hand it off to Travis to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm going to post a link to the blog in the chat. We've been doing some work for quite a while, and now we are ready for people to preview it. If you want the exact instructions, please go to the blog. There's some registry keys you need to add to participate in the preview. This preview will be from updating from anywhere from Preview 5 or Preview 6 to Preview 7. We need people to do this, so if you want to do this, don't manually update to Preview 7. The other thing you can do with this is just do a clean install. There's a different set of registry keys for that. I can't demo this to you until it's actually available, but it should be available within about a week. We'll tweet when it's available, but go read the blog and get ready for it. And when it's available, it should either install for you or you can go trigger Windows Update. Microsoft Update. You need to be opted into Microsoft Update. Microsoft Update is just a flag in Windows Update that says you want updates for products for non-Windows products.
Yeah, I would demonstrate this now, but unfortunately my Windows Update dialog probably shows stuff I shouldn't show. So it's basically just under settings, Windows Update or update and whatever, and then additional settings. There's a check for updates for other Microsoft products that I have installed, but there's also like 7 other ways to enable it. So just Google enabling Microsoft Update.
Yeah, there's also you can do it through at least Windows PowerShell. I haven't tried in PowerShell Core, and I can point people to the script if you. I can add it to the discussion. So the blog post has been fixed. The blog post has been fixed. You might get a cached version, like Ryan is saying, without the backslashes. If you do so, it should be updated soon. I checked before this, and at least for me, it's been updated. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just I want to call it one more thing on the update side. This is something that we're experimenting. We do plan to eventually get to like quote unquote GA for this wait install. The key thing here is we need some people to help test this out for us, because the team tests it out, but we're also like on CorpNet and it's meaning Microsoft CorpNet, so it's a very different environment. So in the blog post, there's a link to a discussion where we want people to kind of give us positive and constructive feedback if things are not working. So we know what to fix by the time we get to 7.2 GA.
Yeah, the matrix of operating systems that we're updating to here is vast, right? And, unfortunately, there's a lot of SKUs and branches and builds and stuff that exist out there in the wild that we want to make sure work here. And we don't want to force that on people without, them having some confidence that this is going to work, which is why we're asking you to go add this reg key in order to opt yourself into this. But yeah, we need to have this information. I should say, though, because it wasn't totally, Travis and Steve both a little humble here. This is huge, right? This is like, hey, we're now going to be able to update PowerShell from within Windows without having to go out to the GitHub releases page. That means you're going to be able to do it with SCCM, Intune, WSUS, all the different third-party tools that you use to manage, compliance of WU updates. This is a really big deal in terms of making sure that PowerShell 7 stays up to date on Windows, and it was a ton of work on Travis's part. This is not a trivial aspect at all. So, thank you to Travis and everybody. Get excited because it's awesome.
Ryan had a question about how far back the matrix goes. Because of some technical decisions we have to make for this preview, we're only going back to RS3 and newer. I can post that. We need to make a technical decision in the back end, which I can't really discuss publicly. But so we need some data from this preview to make that decision. So please participate and tell us how we're doing and give us some data on how we're doing, and then we can go from there on how we go forward. So only Windows 10, RS3, and newer.
Yeah, the blog post contains the actual build number, right?
I believe so. If it doesn't, I can update it.
I'm pretty sure it does.
It does, yeah. And this does include server as well, just as an FYI.
Yeah, and this thing with Windows 10 and server are basically equivalent from a Windows Update point of view. We don't really care about the differences from a technology point of view, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very important point that I think there was some confusion on, at least again on Twitter, where people are asking like, we already published the store, and you can also install via WinGet. Like, why did we spend time doing the Microsoft update? And really, server is the key thing there, where WinGet at this point in time, as far as I remember, isn't supported on server or isn't there by default. And the store is definitely not supported on server either. So this is the way to get it on both server and client.
And another thing is we have a set of customers that block access to other things, but they have access to Windows Update. So this gives people that don't want to give access to like GitHub to get the copy of the binaries a way of updating.
Yeah, for instance, I just recently learned even that the Windows 10 LTSC builds do not have the store. So, that would have to be sideloaded here in Windows Update. Same thing as server. So, Yeah, this is and again, this is like, I also want to just say this doesn't preclude us still trying to ship in the box, right? We're still having those conversations. I don't have anything to share publicly yet, but there are ongoing conversations about that. It's something that we know is the number one thing that you folks are asking for, and it's not something we've given up on or anything like that at this point in time. So, but this should certainly make things better in the meantime. Awesome. Anything else, Travis?
No, I don't have anything else to talk about here.
Fantastic. Let's hand it over to Amber to give us an update on PowerShell Get v3. Amber, take it away.
Yeah, hey all. I just wanted to give a quick update on what we've been doing with PowerShell Get. As you probably know, we've been working on refactoring all of the commandlets, making sure our validations and test coverage for core scenarios are down pat. We're done with the refactoring and have merged in the PRs for all of the repository commandlets, as well as get installed PS resource, uninstall PS resource, and publish PS resource. And we're very close to having find PS resource merged in and are about a week away from getting install, save, and update completely refactored as well. We've been trying really hard to make a push to get a release out within the next few weeks. So I just wanted to say thanks for you all for being patient with us. We are trying really hard to make sure that we have a quality product and that we have a super smooth backwards compatibility experience, but also are incorporating a lot of the cool new features and bug fixes that you all have been asking for. So we'll have a blog post out with our next release to kind of bring everyone up to date on everything that we've been working on since our last release, which is, it's been a few months now.
Awesome. Yeah, I know everyone's very excited. I was seeing, I feel like I saw something come out of Find the other day that we were seeing some of the performance stuff there that was looking good. I don't remember where I was seeing that, Amber, but I could have sworn. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very exciting, and I think it's gonna be awesome to see all the improvements that come out of this. Cool.
So there's so Gail had a question about a DC resource for PowerShell Get v3. I believe we have one that was included. I don't know if it may need to be updated. Amber, do you want any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have some DSC resources in there. We have some pretty basic testing for that. Gail, I can talk to you offline if you've been having some issues like using those DSC resources. But we definitely do. We have the DSC resources in there right now, and we'll put it into this refactoring that we're doing as well. There has been some discussion about potentially moving the DSC resources out into their own module. Again, if you have any like strong opinions on this, if anyone has any strong opinions on this, we would just love to hear from you and hear what you think about that as well, whether that would be like advantageous or not advantageous. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us on GitHub and let us know how you feel.
Awesome. I hadn't realized that we still had those. That's actually great news with given the DSC 3.0 stuff that's coming. So very exciting. Anything else you wanted to add there, Amber, or anybody else working on PowerShell Get?
That was it for me.
Cool. Well, we're gonna move it right along then to Andy to give an update on the VS Code extension.
Hi there, everyone. So as you may know, we actually just launched a new stable release of the Visual Studio Code for PowerShell extension for Visual Studio Code. Earlier this month, it was titled the May release. We were working on it through May, and it went out the very first week of June. I'm going to go ahead and share the blog post announcement on that here. The major things that happened in like between this stable release and the stable release before it was that we updated the engine underneath. So actually, I want to point out that like a lot of the work happening in the extension right now is stability and reliability work. What this means is most of it is not going to be seen in the extensions repository. There's actually the sub-project underneath our PowerShell editor services where the majority and bulk of the work is ongoing and happening. This release included a huge update to the OmniSharp package, which is actually the LSP server abstraction layer that we use underneath. The blog post goes into some pretty heavy details. We found a couple major issues within that new OmniSharp update that we worked upstream to get fixed in OmniSharp, and which was great because it fixed it for other extensions as well. And all those fixes went into this current release. Since then, we've actually also found a bug in the .NET 6 SDK that we have fixed, and I just pushed out in a preview this morning. So if you're looking to use the latest and greatest code, it's not what this blog post is talking about, the stable release. There is a new preview out as of this morning that you can go test out. It should now work with PowerShell 5 again. There were some issues with the whole net standard facades that have been mitigated and are being fixed upstream still, but we have a workaround in place for those. Work is continuing mostly on the pipeline work. So Rob has been hard at work getting the pipeline asynchronous, just gobbledygook is probably the best way I can describe this, kind of fixed up. It's all being sort of replumbed and rewired so that there are less asynchronous issues, which should lead to a lot more reliable experiences in the extension, especially in the debugger. The last leg of work on that is actually to hook the debugger back up after this refactoring. I know we've had a number of issues lately on the debugger not working super well. So look forward to that project, the pipeline edit, where it is in the bottom, editor services pipeline stability project on GitHub. When that is finished and that work is done, we should see a lot stabler of a debugger, as well as the whole extension in and of itself. I'm hoping that will be sometime towards the end of this month, is my best guess. The other thing that I wanted to share was I pulled up some statistics, and one of the first things we did earlier this year was to improve our ability to do releases in the first place. And I'm happy and very pleased to report that we've doubled our release cadence. Since February, we've pushed out 6 preview releases and 3 stable releases. And in contrast to the 6 months before that, we had a single release and just a few preview releases on top of that. So we are able to ship our changes out to you guys a lot faster, which is great because you all then file bugs and we get those fixed. I'm actually still working on getting a burn down chart set up of the number of issues that we've closed, but I think we are making tremendous progress, and I hope that we can continue to do so. That comes with the one problem, which is people do want new features sometimes still, and we're really trying hard not to work on new features. We are trying to fix bugs and stabilize this extension. It's in need of it, and that work is progressing. Does anyone have questions on anything upcoming or just commentary?
No, I think we're good.
All right, great. Hey, if you want to, go install that preview release that I pushed out this morning and let me know how it goes. We can always use more feedback.
Like right now?
Go for it.
It's really this easy, folks. I've got this one here. This is currently disabled. I've got this one here. This is enabled globally. It looks like I already have it. Is this it? 2020.9? No, that can't be it.
No, it should be 2021.6.0.
Why don't I have
refresh
an
your
update
marketplace
button?
somehow? I don't know, but your other PowerShell one is very old too. I don't know what's up with your marketplace.
Well, this one's disabled because I haven't used the preview or the non-preview in forever. But yeah, I may just need to update VS Code. You guys can tell I use this environment here a lot for. This is not necessarily my primary PowerShell authoring environment, so just as a FYI that I'm not the most horrible person ever here for not updating my stuff.
Josh is seeing it. That's the right preview version. One last quick add I wanted to point out is that we do have in the bottom of this blog post what's next, but I just added 2 more different projects to sort of categorize some of the work that we've been doing, one of which is a VS Code compatibility project. There's a lot of work upstream with VS Code, which is great, but it also means it can kind of slow us down when there's new features coming out or new things that we have to support, or even just new bugs versus our own bugs that we're sorting out. So we have a whole project tracking some of that stuff. And the other project is a documentation project. There is an old website for PowerShell editor services that we want to regenerate and get back up to speed, as well as like document some of our procedures. I actually just documented the release process, get an architecture document written. So we're tracking that too as separate work that we're looking to finish soon-ish, or at least, actively make progress on now. So go ahead and check out the projects on GitHub if you're curious where our priorities lie right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. It's very exciting. Congrats on the doubling of the cadence. I hadn't realized we were that much better than before. That's really impressive, and just really awesome that everybody can get kind of a peek into what's going on there. So, yeah, I'm gonna hop over now to the GitHub issue to talk about community demos. So, it looks like Gail and Justin both had some community demos that they got kicked from last time. Is that, Steve, are we still that's the latest here? I hadn't browsed all the way through this year.
I know that Justin confirmed. I'm not sure if Gail, although he's on the meeting, is prepared to demo or not.
No.
Well, Justin, are you okay to start and then maybe sorry,
Sure,
was
I
that
can do
Gail?
Gail just said no, so we'll hold him for next time maybe.
Okay,
That sounds
sounds
like
good.
a very emphatic no too. So
All right, well, take it away, Justin.
thanks, Joey. I'm gonna steal the screen here real quick. All right, should be there or on its way.
I can see it.
So I'm going to demo today a little module I've been working on called Power Config. So a common issue with especially both building modules and running scripts is allowing sort of configuration form. A lot of time we do these through parameters of the scripts and such, but especially when you're doing things in like a CI system, it's really nice to have some sort of way to bring in that configuration together. So there's when I was thinking about this problem, there's already a really nice module out there called configuration, but it only works with PSD files. And so I kind of wanted to have something a little bit larger. And so when I was looking into this, it's like I always kind of like to see what's out there before I start writing from scratch. And as you imagine, configuration is one of those problems that's been solved over and over again. And one place that's been solved really well is in the .NET framework and with ASP.NET. There's this piece called Microsoft Extensions Configuration that if you ever used ASP.NET or any of those kind of things, you notice there's all these configuration JSONs you can set and that kind of thing. That runs through this engine. And the team did a really good job when they made this, as well as some other ones, a logging one, et cetera, that it's really well decoupled from the actual, the full ASP.NET framework. So you can actually just kind of use it as a standalone module. So what I did is I just wrote a sort of a wrapper around it in PowerShell. So as you can see with the image here, this is kind of as a summary of it, but basically the way that it works is when you define your power config, you define this object that will automatically pull from all these different sources that you can define however you want. They can be TOML files, YAML files, JSON files, environment variables in the environment, PSD files that exist, an existing hash table that you just add as a variable, and then it'll just take it all and it'll merge it all together from all these different sources and build you a very simple nested hash table, basically, so that you can just access those settings really easily. And it's also extensible with a lot of additional plugins. So since this is a lightning demo, enough of that part. Let's just get to that aspect of it. So here I have, this is just the repository, and so it's all here. This is all public on GitHub at the same location at Justin Grody Power Config. So I just have a very simple start where I just take this and I go ahead and import it. Let me go back. And I have a couple TOML files, a couple different configurations here. So this is sort of like a configuration for a zoo as a contrived example. Now let's squish these guys together. And the stupid pin, come here. So we have, for instance, a base that's just sort of a JSON file that kind of defines our zoo. Call it Critterland, got a couple locations. And we have a few exhibits in there. We have an Africa exhibit that has a zebra, a polar exhibit that has a polar bear, and a cave that has a bat. So we also have some other configurations that we have where there's a TOML file that say, hey, well, let's also set the ticket price. And actually, let's change the city to Happy Land. And this is a different configuration format, but it all merges together and they're all optional. So like if you prefer TOML over YAML or you prefer YAML over JSON or you just want to use JSON, if these files exist or not, it doesn't matter. It'll just automatically bring them in. So, and then we have here the zoo, another YAML file that adds an aviary that has a whole bunch of birds. So to start, I just can do a new power config. And that'll give me this config object. I don't have a nice view for this thing yet, but basically what this is sort of the core of the engine that runs it. And as you update the files, it can go ahead and update the contents of it in real time. From that, if I just go to the properties of the command, if I do power config, it's got a few ways to add sources built in, and you just simply pipe the object to these sources. So you do, you know, add power config YAML source, and then give it a path. And then what that'll do is that'll simply now register that file with the config engine. And so now it'll use it. And it registers in order. So if you add a YAML file and then a JSON file and then a TOML files I have here, they'll process in that order. It'll first read the JSON file, and then it'll move on to the YAML file. And if that file like has different settings or settings in the same place, it'll go ahead and overwrite and merge and clobber those old settings. So that way you can have like a basic configuration, but like an example, like a repository, you can have a basic configuration, but your user can drop in files that like override other settings to for their own personal preferences. A good place here is like prompts and that kind of thing. So let's just go ahead and demo it here. So I got a config here, and it has this for parameter, which is basically like a default setting that if you use this setting, let's see if the help should be there. Nope, my help is screwed up. So we'll go to the command alert itself. So what this for parameter does is it simply enables a name that you specify, and then it'll automatically pre-configure a bunch of stuff for you. So it'll pre-configure to look for, if you say test, it'll pre-configure to look in the same folder as your script for a JSON, YAML, and a TOML file with the same name. It'll also look in your home directory under a .config folder, which is sort of the standard for saving these. Even PowerShell keeps its configs there on Linux for the same things. And then it'll also set an environment variable so that you can set all these different environment variables and use the environment variables to override even what's in those files. And again, it all follows this same sort of nested hash table hierarchy. So we'll see what that looks like in reality. I'll go ahead and take this and run it. Now I have a config. It has some sources. And these sources, now it's added those sources like I talked about. It added the local ones, it added the remote ones, and it added that special environmental variable one. So now if I do get power config, now I have my merged configuration. And so if we go back to look at the files here, bring this out of the way and just kind of put these in a few different locations here. So we have sort of our base file here. And so you see they have the critter land and everything. If we go let me save this to our config, or let's do our zoo. I look at my exhibits. I have my polar bear, my cave, my aviary, my Africa. So it took all these configurations and merged them together. Even though they're different file formats and they're from different locations, you get this merged config. And so if we want to modify this, I can take, for instance, my YAML zoo, and maybe we don't do, let's call them crazy birds. So now when I have to go ahead and do a get config so that our config stays stable, but now our aviary has crazy birds. And all I had to do is refresh the config. And so you can change the configuration parameters, and it keeps this merged thing. If I take this exhibit, the same exhibit, and I put it over in the JSON file and take it out of this one, crazy JSON birds, and then do it again, now we have crazy JSON birds. And you can do this with environment variables too. So at runtime, you could do zoo exhibits there's my fancy PS read line completing it for me because I tested this earlier. And if I look at my config again, I now have that deer exhibit that I just added through an environment variable. So you get this really nice way to merge all kinds of different configurations. And I'm planning to change it to a little bit of a plugin model, a lot like secret management, where you can make plugins for anything that kind of can line up with that. And it's not really that complicated code. I like this as an example of being able to bring in stuff that's already been made in .NET. The complicated stuff comes in the loading, especially with making PowerShell 5 compatibility. But the actual code is fairly simple. If we go to one of these commands like get power config, all it does is call the .NET parameters to build that configuration builder. And then the new power config is just simply a matter of validating that for and then adding with those default sources. But again, the code is not complicated because I'm just reusing that stuff that was already written in .NET. So really nice, this whole thing, you'll see there's not a single .cs file anywhere in here. It's all written purely in PowerShell. And it provides a nice centralized way to manage configs. As an example, just to wrap up here, because my Lightning demo is taking more time than I should allow anyways. My press module, which I demoed last time, which does the sort of meant to be like a development environment for PowerShell modules, it uses PowerConfig for its entire configuration. So for instance, the build script, if you have this, the build script has all these press settings. So you have press setting, general source dir, press setting, build module dir. All of these come from that same PowerConfig engine. So if you want to, when you're writing your module, if you want to override the defaults, you want to set your module out dir somewhere else, you can define a JSON file to do it. You can use a YAML file. You can just set an environment variable. You can provide an object at runtime. If you make a plugin to like pull from Azure Key Vault or use secret managements to bring a secret into the configuration, it all uses that same merge configuration, but none of the other code doesn't change. I don't have to make a function that says if, get the key vault there. I just say, just read the configuration using PowerConfig, and it'll merge all these different sources, build a nice tree of settings, and my application will just use whatever that has. So thanks for your time. That's sort of a demo there. Again, it's available out there at PowerConfig. Still a work in progress, like a lot of the stuff that I do, but just a good example of a way to use PowerShell to use things that are already there and have some really powerful things without a whole lot of effort to build them. So thank you.
I had not seen this before, Justin, and this is very cool. I like this a lot. It's interesting because we actually had a big long conversation yesterday about YAML commandlets, which was a top request in PowerShell, and why those are potentially problematic. Unfortunately, it was the reason was third-party libraries and the YAML parsing, and unfortunately, I just looked up in the background here this ASP.NET configuration engine, and it looks like you're loading like a third-party extension for that in order to do YAML. Right. And that the ASP.NET folks actually pushed back in much the same way we did to say, well, there's a lot of really great parsers out there, and it's extensible, and you can use any of them, and they're great. And it looks like have you had any issues with any of those in the past, the YAML extensions?
Part of it has been a little bit of the flux in the YAML specification. Like you used to be able to do extends where you could like have a YAML reference another YAML file, right, and kind of break it out into separate files, and they decided to put the kibosh on that in favor of like templating engines and such. I generally haven't had an issue, but again, the scenarios that I work with are very simple. The whole idea of that was to do, it's just very simple, like nested tables and such. If you looked at the project file, the one that I bring in is a third party, but again, it's that Microsoft Extensions configuration engine. They allow for configuration providers, and somebody just wrote a configuration provider. Like I plan to write a configuration provider for secret management, where you can just have it bring in secrets, from any secret management vault by the keys, so that you can, basically like if you have a key defined like secrets, and in there, if your secret management, like you have a vault defined, it'll just transparently go get that vault, bring all the keys into the unified configuration. So those are examples. And so my code has it all in one, but my plan was to take like that YAML and JSON ones to break them out into separate modules. So there'd be PowerConfig, but then just like the secret management vaults, it'll be things like, PowerConfig.json.yaml, so that you can pick and choose which ones you use. So you can have that core library that's the official .NET supported type stuff, and then the fringe stuff, the YAML, the TOML, that kind of thing, you can just bring into separate modules. That's the ultimate plan for it, but right now it's just kind of an experimental state.
You're abstracting the abstraction. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very, very cool. Yeah, I really like this. It looks like you got a question in the chat here as well. If you can do something like -4 env computer name and have different config for different servers?
Sure. Well, I mean, like for instance, one thing you could do is when you do the new power config, when you do that -4, you could have the 4 be env computer name. So now when you do it, your default script is now, let's say your computer name is server 1. It's now looking for server 1 JSON, server 2 JSON, or server 1 JSON, server 1 YAML, server 1 TOML, but then you go to a different computer and you run it. Now it's looking for server 2 JSON, server 2 TOML. I mean, I don't really know the benefit of that because you'd want them all there, but you could also, again, because it ultimately results in a config object, the object's not global. So you could do a new power config and then do 4 server 1, server 2, server 3, server 4, and each one of those config objects is going to look for different configs. Again, 4 is just a shortcut. You can then add whatever configs you want. You can add any JSON file, any YAML file. You know, you can add the VS Code settings file, and it will make that nested hash table structure, you know, just by pulling it and parsing it. Like, it's not specific to what I made there. Like, you can make a power config and say add JSON configuration source settings.json, and now you'll have this big hash table that's all the VS Code settings, but in a PowerShell hash table that you know how to work with, and you know how to do the dot things, and you can modify it. And then you could have another thing that brings in a different config and merges those together. It's meant to be extremely flexible and not provide any like prescriptive things to do with it.
No,
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
really awesome. Definitely gonna have to play with it. Sorry, Steve.
No, I was just kind of saying that I think it's really interesting because I know Justin was very involved with you know, building extensions for secret management, and then kind of like taking that concept to configuration. I think it's just really innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here so we can hop over back to the community call questions. So I think we've actually addressed a number of these. Michael, you are on the call here. Do you feel like we've given some accountability and progress here? Did you have any other questions around the working group statuses?
Not for the working group statuses themselves. It looks like there's been more momentum. That's going to continue to roll out. It's too early to tell yet if that's going to make a difference for like throughput, right? Like, they haven't had more than a couple of weeks. They're still doing onboarding, so it's just something I want to keep visibility on as we move forward. And I think it would probably be nice for the team to be able to say, yeah, we solved it in 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, it's certainly, it's going to take some time to get some momentum. And actually, I would say there's even a potential kind of road bump that you hit along the way. Like, as you're getting spun up, you don't really have time necessarily for the, you know, maybe the issue stuff you were doing, you know, a month ago. So do bear with us, but I'm hoping to see that kind of accelerator pedal get pushed down pretty soon here, especially now that we have some of this Discord stuff spun up, and we can share some of that soon. So, but I just really wanted to thank you, Michael, for bringing it back up and, you know, being so constructive on all of this, because I know that it can be very frustrating, and I hope that we're, you know, starting to move in the right direction, and you know, we'll definitely keep our consistency here.
Yeah, I think the transparency helps a lot.
Moving along, community update on VS Code extension. I think we're or community update and on VS Code extension. I think we've got that. There's community requests to reduce noisy notifications. So I think actually, I think Rob, you were talking with Ilya about this one yesterday. Do you want to give a little bit of context here? Are you able to do that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any like strong thoughts on it. That the discussion we had would pertain to what to name the PowerShell executable thread in GitHub, which is quite long and has had a number of people weigh in, and it definitely isn't progressing at any point here. And I think Joel Bennett had a reasonable request to lock the thread, but that, in my mind, is a different question to should we lock all threads after some amount of time. There are definitely some threads that are, you know, quite old, but, you know, discussions have come back around, or developments have been made. I don't personally have like a really strong opinion on it, but you know, my personal inclination is to think, you know, that locking threads by default is a little bit heavy-handed, maybe. But my suggestion was, okay, like if we want to discuss that, then that's probably the right thing to do in terms of everyone, in terms of the community, is make sure that we have consensus around whether that's the approach we should take or not.
Yeah, I think what I probably recommend right now, because I saw this briefly and I understand the pain point here. I've actually, for myself, I've given up on notifications because I'm just involved in too many things across GitHub. But I think we should definitely have this discussion in the committee to kind of understand the pros and cons. I think Joe Sallow brings up a potential way to validate, like if it's over a year old, maybe it makes sense. I'm actually thinking out loud here, but maybe we can just have a label like resolve close or something, and then the bot can lock those. That way, there's a human element that decides whether or not something is completely immutable. So anyways, we should definitely have the discussion in our next committee meeting and get that resolved so that our community contributors and our team don't get a bunch of noise they don't need to look at.
Oh, I'm muted. Absolutely. Agreed.
And just bring on one other thing before you move on, because I know some people on the chat have already noticed. 7.2 Preview 7 is out.
Breaking news, folks. Yeah, so we were maybe hopefully it gets released today. Yep, there you go. There you go. There we go.
So thanks to and the other maintainers and Ilya, who is a maintainer, that helped us. So
yeah, really appreciate it, folks. So there's not a ton of changes in this one, but definitely some good stuff to check out. And of course, just always update, because sometimes we might have slipped something in there that we didn't mean to, which is why we need folks trying out our previews. So again, keep your eyes peeled on twitter.com/PowerShell_team. I thought about this last night, Travis. We should also update the blog post once the Microsoft update is available. So, if you want to try that out, which please do if you're on Windows, do not update to this, right? We're gonna see you're gonna see in the next week or so, a tweet come out, and then Windows Update will show that you can do this, assuming you've done all of the onboarding steps that we've got in this blog post. So,
just one thing about updating the blog: it takes quite a while for updates to the blog to show up.
Yes, that's true. I just so that when people eventually inevitably find their way back into it, it tells them, hey, this actually is available now. So, but yeah, basically, run this guy, and then you do have to be on Preview 5 or Preview 6. So make sure that you have updated to one of those, but don't update to 7 if you want to try this out. And please, use other tools too. You do it with WSUS, do it with Intune compliance stuff. Let us know if that stuff works. Cool. So going back to the so Maximo is asking us, is PowerShell update be included in both Windows 10 Insider and the upcoming Windows 11? I don't know anything about Windows 11. But Windows 10 Insider, as long as it is greater than RS3 Plus, I believe, yes, that is the case. But Travis, you can confirm or deny there.
Yeah, that should
What was the question?
If the Microsoft update will apply to Windows 10 Insider builds?
Yes, it should work on Windows 10 Insider builds. The only real applicable is whether it's
greater than RS3.
Yeah, and it can run Windows Update. Windows, there have been rumors of a Windows 11, but as far as I know, it's not officially announced, and I don't have any technical details about it to tell you whether it'll apply.
Awesome. Maximo also asks, I've noticed in recent only Azure training demos the ability to getting secrets from the Azure Vault and the form set parameters included in a YAML file. Can this be implemented in a PowerShell standalone session? I'm not familiar with that, but maybe we can take that offline, or you can post some more context, Maximo, on what you mean there.
Yeah.
Does anybody else maybe possibly in the chat know what he might be talking about there?
I mean, if Maxwell's here, we could maybe just have him talk to it.
Is he here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you are. Oh, hey. There he is. Yeah, tell us more about this. What I'm unfamiliar with this Azure. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing just so we can.
Yeah, apparently when you use the Azure Key Vault feature, right? So you in a YAML, let's say you want to pass on the username and password, normally we extract that into a variable and we pass it along, right? Behind the scene. But in the demos, I've noticed it's just like an environment variable that automatically knows what to grab because you identify it and it pass it along without even having to code, okay, give me the variable from this session and pass it along. So leaving behind the scene some way to, the code is the variable have the value there, So this way it's like behind the scene is secret. It stays secret all the way.
So Max, if I can, are you referring to like Azure Functions where you can define a secret and then in your Azure function, like it's just available as an environment variable, or are you talking about something else?
Well, I'm unfamiliar with the Azure secret, which now after seeing this, I'm going to dive more into it to see more. But apparently when you create those values in the secret, you can pass it along. You just create in the YAML, you identify $sign or whatever bracket and username, and then it will pass it along automatically without the need of creating a variable to extract the secret. Normally that's what I would do. I will open the secret for a limited time, get the value out, and then use the values and leave the secret vault, secured. But I'm still have the value exposed in memory. And here it's already already, you know how to grab it and use it. It's an example of a container. They call it a Tradewin. It's in GitHub. It's called it. As a matter of fact, I'm doing like multi.
Yeah, drop us some links for sure.
I'm doing a multi online session here because I'm participating in the implement hybrid infrastructure. Great.
Are you breaking up a little bit there? I lost you at the end. But to be honest, I'm not familiar, Max, and definitely drop us some links maybe here or on Twitter, and we can look into it because I'm not exactly sure which layer in Azure you're talking about. So, but we'll definitely give it a look and see if maybe there's some opportunity there for.
Let me do a little more research. I wanted to throw it out there so that way it can be, on the list. I'm not working right now, so I'm gonna do it. I'm training myself, so
nice.
Let me dive into it, gather all the information, pass it on to you. See something that we can do for secrets,
Yeah, definitely. Let us know.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing I do know is that one thing you can do is that with the secret management module that the team has put together, there is a plugin there for Azure Key Vault. So in your script can say, get secret, and then from the vault, and then it will pull it from the vault and then put it into a already encrypted storage called a secure string, and basically and then it just brings into the script and runs it. And so there's never a point where it has to be clear text in memory.
Yeah, you're totally right on that. But I want to leave it as a standalone secret management. So let me understand how the secret vault and Azure work, and then maybe we can figure something out here. Because the thing is not to prevent doing let me open secret, grab the value, reuse the value, close the secret vault. I want to keep it flowing behind the scene, without the need of creating a variable to extract from secret. At least that's what I'm doing right now. I have a set parameter that if I do set parameter this, it knows what it'll pick it up, grab it, and bring it in. That's the flow I want to see. It's like a backend Linux. Keep it encrypted, yeah, but it's already know where to grab it. I'm authorized, boom, get it, get it on and use it. That's my normal, that's my mind thought right there.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll look for that context then for sure.
Don't worry, I'll work it on. I have time for that.
Nice.
What I do, well, hey, I'm not working, so what the hell? Let's just go ahead and train and re-educate myself, get my skill set sharp.
Totally, exactly.
Someone will use me. Hey guys, I'll let you go, okay?
Thank you so much, Max. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks to you guys. Steve, thank you very much for the post.
Of course.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care. So if there are no more questions today, I think we may be wrapping up here just a couple minutes early. Want to thank everyone again for joining us. And we'll get these notes and recording posted for those of you that want to review some of this later, maybe share with some of your colleagues. As always, we'll be here again next month, third Thursday of the month, and we'll see you again then. Thanks again, folks. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and let me just give one more shout out to Justin Grody. I always appreciate your demos, but I also just want to make a call out to the community. Like, I would love to see other folks also provide demos, and I want to make sure like people aren't intimidated by Justin's, professional demos. Like, I want to see other folks also just show off some cool things they've done, or whatever. Like, I want this to be more interactive between the PowerShell team and the community, and not just us on the PowerShell team presenting stuff. So. But anyways, Justin, I'm looking forward to your next demo.
Awesome. Right. Take care, folks. See you next month.